I'm Plexi Cosplay. While ConCrunch may feel like a thing of the past and in-person conventions are on hold for the foreseeable future, I'm here to bring you your daily dose of that time crunch con feeling with this 1-hour cosplay build of Wonder Woman's Corset. Big thanks to Michael's Craft Stores for sponsoring this video, and let's get to it, because the more time I talk, the less time I have to build. My first task was to stop at Michael's and pick up everything that I needed for this project. It was nice and quick because all of my supplies were there in one place. And then I printed off the templates I needed from Kamui Cosplay and began cutting my pattern. The reason that I chose a pre-made pattern for this build is because it's a speed build. We don't want to reinvent the wheel while trying to get something done in a short amount of time, so Kamui's patterns are the best for this. The bad part is they come in a ton of different shapes and pieces, so this tracing and cutting part is going to take quite some time. So you might be thinking, but Candace, I don't want to watch half an hour of you tracing and cutting patterns. Fortunately for you, I interviewed some of my favorite cosplayers, and in the next few minutes, you're going to start seeing some interviews pop up on this screen, so you can watch me in real time making this speed build, while also getting a few tips, tricks, and maybe some secrets from the cosplayers who are out there right now, crafting, building, and living that cosplay dream. Also, just to let you know, this is a 4mm roll of foam. I like to choose 4mm because it's nice and bendy, it has a little give to it, and it's also sturdy enough for a chest piece. So I use this for the entire base of the chest piece before I start doing my detailing. Plexi Cosplay, as you're watching the video of me below, probably cutting things for an endless amount of time, I've decided to cut away here for a little bit, and I'm going to interview some cosplayers, some of my favorite ones, and they're going to kind of reveal some of their maybe tips, tricks, maybe secrets. I just want to ask and get their feel for what they do in cosplay. So this is Moth Child. Her name is Haley. She's wonderful. You should look her up on Instagram. I am a huge fan. I've been a huge fan since, I think, before either of us, before she reached 10K, before I did much, and I don't know, I like to consider myself her personal cheerleader squad, so it's great. So hi, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So in my speed build, basically I am just crafting my butt off. There is no talking in that, so I want to ask you, whenever you begin a cosplay, you pick what you want to do, whatever the reasons. Typically, yours has a lot of armor in some fashion. But whenever you start armor, do you usually pattern it yourself? Do you start with a base? How do you kind of approach that? Or is it maybe dependent on time and resources?
It's definitely time dependent. You know, most of the time I do a lot myself, like 3 to 4 months, especially if it's a big armor, and I'll take time when I first start to start patterning it all myself. But I actually have a project that I'm going to be starting on soon where I was like, I don't want to do that. And I found someone selling the patterns for like $30. So it's just totally dependent on pretty much time.
Yeah, I would say about the same for me. If I can not have to reinvent the wheel for something, then I'm not going to. And there's so many good patterns out there that it's easy to modify them. But, you know, sometimes you get a cosplay that is clearly never going to be a shape that someone else has patterned, and you just, I don't know, go with the flow. You do a lot of it is something I haven't done much of, 3D printing. You incorporate that a lot into your cosplays, and it's fantastic. I don't even know. I think I tried to do Thingiverse or whatever that is, where you make your own 3Ds, and I just cannot seem to grasp it. It's been tough. So if somebody wanted to do 3D printing or add it in, what would be your recommendation for kind of breaking into that?
So my first thing is, well, for me personally, I'm a very strict rules, regulations. I need things to follow. So I opened up Blender, and that has so many potentials and opportunities for possibility. I was just no, I can't do this. This is too much for me. There's not enough rules. There's not enough stuff telling me not to do certain things. Yeah. It's gone. I'm done. I really like using Fusion 360 for getting sort of the base of everything. Fusion 360 allows me to actually specifically choose the measurements for everything. I was able to choose I had my printer is like right next to me in my bedroom.
Oh, nice.
But I was able to like specifically select like, oh, this is going on a 3/4 inch PVC pipe. I need it to be exactly this measurement so I can make it and know for sure that it's that. But I've also had some instances actually like these rotten little Diablo coins that I've been ranting and raving about on Instagram that have not been going well. Where like I made on one side, all of this is out of Fusion 360, and I saved the file and was able to actually import it to Blender and learn a little bit more through Blender and sort of understand what that program utilizes and how it works to create the other side with like this little skull and stuff. This is still a work in progress, but for me personally, Fusion 360 was sort of my starting point, and then I'm slowly trying to weave my way into other programs.
Yeah, no, that's a good. I think I started with Blender, and it was absolutely a disaster. I could not figure out how somebody can take an idea and make it into something on there in any reasonable amount of time. So it's probably the same. It's a learning curve as with anything else, I guess. I'm on the very bottom of that curve.
My thing too with like Blender, so Kamui Cosplay has what I'm assuming to be a marvelous video about it. I think when I opened it, it was like 30 to 45 minutes talking about like Benny, her husband, using Blender. And I remember like opening that on my phone going, that's really long. I'm not watching that right now.
Yep.
If I'd watched that and like actually tried to learn, I'm sure I would love it. But like, I ain't got time for that right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. You have to like break it apart into more usable chunks, and it's a long video. That's kind of why I'm breaking up the video below. It needs to be in more usable chunks that are interesting. So I guess last thing, since making them all kind of quick, I wanted to ask you maybe your thoughts on cosplay. Like, why did you get into it? How do you feel right now in this different type of world? There's no conventions right now. There's no con crunch, and so just this speed build is about the crunchiest feeling that I've had in a while. But without all of that, are you motivated to make things? What's your next goals? Are you making something right now?
I am. I'm currently working on another Diablo 4 sorceress outfit. This will be my second one because I'm a little obsessed with them. I've definitely found it harder to stay motivated without an actual date, an actual deadline, and an actual goal. I literally started on a staff that I should have started on like 3 weeks ago, yesterday, because I just kind of been like, why? Why bother? Why order the things that I need?
It looked wonderful, though. Anyone who hasn't seen it, go to her page. It's got the 3D prints, the film, the everything. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this thing. I think it's going to be really awesome. I'm going to get like fog machines and stuff. I was also too lazy to make my own fog machines, but I found somebody on Etsy, so I'm supporting small business.
Nice. Very nice. So that's your next one. Are you going to maybe enter in a virtual contest? I know you did that recently, and you were like this close to winning a judge's choice. So it was pretty amazing. One of my favorite ones that you've done, Zora. But are you planning on doing another virtual or just kind of waiting it out until the next in-person?
Well, right. I'm going to kind of wait it out to see how everything is going. I'm actually working with a friend who is potentially commissioning me. We're trying to see how everything is going to make trophies for a virtual competition. So if I make trophies, I obviously can't enter that because I can't make a trophy for myself, except I'm totally making one that just has a little plaque that's like, you tried.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah, just, I don't know. If there's gonna be any that are like super, I haven't seen a whole lot other than the Ultimate Online Cosplay, which is the one that you're referencing before. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a lot of people posting about them, so I'm just kind of like waiting and seeing, I guess.
There, but it's not that one. I felt like was very well advertised, and so that was the easiest one for me to jump on. But the rest of them have been here and there, unless I'm really interested in a specific convention that I follow. Like, I don't know, kind of out there. But anyway, we'll tell people how they can find you. And then we'll wrap it up.
Right. So you can find me on Facebook at Mothchild Cosplay and Creations. You can find me on Instagram at MothchildCC. And then I'm also on YouTube at Mothchild Cosplay and Creations. And I kind of have a TikTok, but not really. Not that it matters because apparently it's getting banned anyway. But Mothchild CC.
I'm going to have to go check it out. Thank you for coming and talking to us about 3D prints, foam, all the good stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
No problem. So now that we're back to my real-time speed build, doesn't look super speedy yet, but this is one of the most time-consuming parts. I like to allot myself half of my build time to actually building the project and the other half to painting. Unfortunately, with so many pieces for this, the tracing, the cutting, the gluing took up a big chunk of this speed build. But right now I'm cutting with an X-Acto knife. Tip is to always use a sharp, fresh blade for each project. It'll help you with those 45-degree angles that you may have to cut on in some sections so it doesn't tear the foam. But it's working really nicely for this one. Just go for it, make sure your cuts are precise, because with a speed build you are not going to have time to go back and Dremel your edges smooth. So the key here is, you know, being fast, but also being precise. Yeah, I know this part is pretty boring to watch, so let me interject again and let you know exactly why I chose foam for this build. You may think Warbler could have been easier. All you have to do is heat everything up, melt it over a dress form to the shape that you want, and there you go, you've got your base. It would have been fast, but honestly, foam has been the choice for cosplayers here in the recent past, and it's for good reason. Foam is not only super cheap to get, but it's really easy to work with, it's comfortable to wear, and it's lightweight. These are all great things to have at one of those convention days where you're out on the floor for several hours. Warbler can poke and prod, and it's just generally uncomfortable. So foam's been my choice. I decided this would be the more likely of the materials that people would want to use for their builds, and thus that's why I chose it for this speed build. So we finally get to go to the next step. All the tracing and the cutting, so long as you did it right, should make this next step super easy. I always, if I'm using a pattern, pull out the pattern layout page. Typically, if you draft your own pattern, you just have to make sure that each piece is labeled and you know where they connect to the other pieces. But with pre-made patterns, they will have a pattern layout page to show you exactly how they all fit together. So have this handy when you start your glue. With the barge cement, they have a toluene-free type that's at Michael's craft stores right now. I would highly recommend getting that. It's better for your lungs, your health. I'm using the classic barge cement here. It's the same thing. And whenever I apply cement, I make sure to apply it thinly, but have all of your edges covered. There's nothing worse than finally getting your glue dried, putting a piece together, and having a side pop off because you weren't careful enough with the application. I just use the brush straight out of the container. You can also put it in a little squeeze bottle, or sometimes I'll use the edge of another piece of foam to kind of scrape it off thinly. But my first step here, apply it to every edge that's going to connect to another piece in my pattern. The easiest way to find that here is anything that has a tick mark on the edge of the pattern piece means that it's going to have to butt up to another piece. That's where they match up. So any piece that has that side, I apply glue to the side, and then I will let them all dry. Contact cement does dry fairly quickly, so by the time I'm done gluing all of these pieces, they'll probably be dry, and I can go ahead and start putting them together.
Alright, so why does everyone use contact cement in cosplay? There's a few reasons. One of the biggest ones is that it's permanent for the most part, and so you can guarantee that your pieces are going to stay together once they're glued together. It also allows for a really nice, smooth, close seam, unlike, say, hot glue, which will cause your seams to be gaping, really. And even things like super glue, you can't get a large amount of it without spending too much money. Contact cement is the right price with the right qualities. Highly recommend to use for all of your attachments in general when it comes to cosplay.
This is another cosplay interview with one of my favorites, Mr. Benson here. I've met him I think we met at Baltimore Comic Con.
Yep.
And him and his entire family actually were integral to me finishing that competition because it was my first one. I was by myself completely. And it was terrifying. And so they kind of hung out with me in the back. I think you took second or something. What did you?
Yeah, I took second in the whatever, the professional, the master from Black Mana that year. Yeah.
It was good. So, and we've seen each other at several cons since. I would like to think of myself as his, again, personal cheerleader. So I called my other cosplayer. I will always be there for them. These are my people. So I wanted to bring him on here because, and I'm going to put up some pictures of his work below to show you. His work is just clean. It's the cleanest. Everything is just very well thought out. The products look like something that is made by somebody who is actually in movies or cinema. It just looks nice. So I'm a huge fan, but anyway, so I wanted to kind of ask you your thought process on things, since the video below is of me doing something probably pretty boring, but very quickly doing it boringly. Whenever I start something, there's usually a thought process that goes into it, a planning that's not spoken, but you get something in your mind where you know what you're going to do next, and you're going to give it a go, and it might work or it might not, but you have that process. So whenever you pick a new cosplay, say you did the Reaper or something, what do you look at first? Do you look at the layers first? Do you look at maybe the most complicated piece? What is your first thing that you usually do?
Yeah, usually, for example, the Reaper is a good example of what I like to do, because I like to do a mixture of foam, of sewing, of all different kinds of media, for that. So one of the things that I look at is what's going to be the hardest, and what material do I need for that? And then I try to figure out how much material, and then order twice as much.
Always.
Because there's a lot of R&D kind of thing. I mean, there's a few patterns that you can find online, but I like to do stuff that you might not have seen before. So there's very few patterns out there. For example, the jacket that I made for the Reaper, I just, spitballed it. I had a pattern from when I made Gambit a few years ago, which is a big trench coat like that. So I just took that pattern and modified it.
Yeah. That's actually, Haley and I were discussing this too, because with my speed build, one of the easiest hacks to do is, if you can, to choose a base pattern. It doesn't have to be a pattern for that cosplay per se, but if something looks similar enough, make some slight modifications to make it work. And that's usually if I'm on a time crunch, if I just don't feel like reinventing the wheel for something and I know that there's something out there. But a lot of times, especially when you get into professional cosplay and you start getting more and more intricate with what you're making, there's just not something similar to what you want anymore. So that's, good points to bring up. So you're very much someone who doesn't use patterns that often, and it's done very well for you because everything you make is just gold.
Well, every time there's a finished product, there's 3 or 4 things that didn't quite make it that far. But I learned something from each one of the mistakes, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah.
Get me to the final end product, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, in the video that people are watching below, who knows where I am in the process right now, what I am making is completely out of foam because I found that Wonder Woman's corset, which is what I'm making, is more of an armor versus maybe a leather or something, although I've seen people make them out of leather. Do you have maybe a favorite medium? Because you do a lot of mixed mediums. You mix everything together where you can, and whatever is suits best the end product that you want.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
My favorite, there's a fabric from Joann's that is a black and white little hexagon kind of pattern. I used it for the undersuit of the Reaper. I used it on my Black Manta. It's just a nice medium weight kind of fabric. It's not too light where you can see through it, but it's not super heavy where it's hot.
Yes.
It stretches a little bit, but not too much kind of thing. It's what I really like to work with. And actually, that fabric has a lot to do with what I design because I have a lot of it and I like to use it. So obviously for the Reaper, he's all black. So it fit perfectly into using that kind of material.
Yeah, for sure. Stretch materials are hard to work with, but once you do, they just are very versatile in what you can use them for, I feel like. And sometimes you use them to cheat almost, where you're like, if it's not going to quite fit the way I want it to, this stretch material will, and it'll make it fit.
It's very forgiving. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Well, we'll wrap it up quick because I know whatever I'm building, there are parts in it that at some point I need to take a break and explain to people what's going on. So we'll wrap this one up, though. I want to ask you what you're doing now, what your plans are, and how do you feel during this, shutdown when there's no conventions? Are you motivated? Are you kind of just coasting through? Are you going to keep doing cosplay?
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep doing cosplay. Right now, I'm staying within Overwatch family. I'm working on a McCree cosplay. Very classical skins kind of thing because my kids love Overwatch. Mm-hmm. And so I pick characters that they can relate with and they help me out a lot with. So I'm working on a McCree. And again, the shutdown, even though there's no conventions, it's something to do. We're trying to stay home. We're trying to be somewhat smart with everything going on. So it keeps me busy at home. Even though there's not a con in the near future, I still have that kind of process where my creative juices have a chance to come out and do something kind of thing. So
yeah, for sure. Well, where could people find you? Where could they find your work online?
Probably Instagram at pbenson1167 is mostly where I post my cosplay stuff. I post updates, final product, trials and tribulations, what works, what doesn't work. There's a lot of stuff there. Yeah,
for sure. Well, thank you for coming on, talking to me about everything cosplay. And, I wish you and your family luck. Are you guys going to be doing virtual learning, I guess, coming up here soon?
Absolutely, Candace. The kids are all ready to go to stay home and hopefully learn something.
Ready to go to their desk at the house.
Absolutely.
Same here. That's what we're doing. So, well, best of luck to you guys. And I guess we'll be seeing you soon. Everyone, please go like his Instagram page. He's great.
Thank you. Take it easy, Candace.
Now, what I should have thought about here as I was doing this was that I was going to have absolutely no time to Dremel or fill my seams. So a little bit more carefulness during this moment would have paid off better in the future with smoother seams. But at the time, I had this idea that I was going to fit everything I wanted to into this build. Anyway, the original idea here was that all of the red panels on Wonder Woman's corset was going to be made of 2mm foam or 1mm foam that you would overlay on top of your base. That would effectively kind of cover up these seams. Unfortunately, with only 1 hour of time for this speed build, I was not going to have enough time, and this was right about the moment where I realized that was the case. So the more you know. If you're not super into cosplaying, or you're kind of a beginner, not really sure what the heck it is I'm doing right now, basically I'm taking all of my pattern pieces, those little notches that I had made earlier with the Sharpie, super important at this point because you're going to match them up to the adjacent pieces. So I'm taking all of mine, matching them up at the little marks, and trying to get one corset made out of several tinier pieces. With a pre-made pattern, that's the goal here. You make a bunch of little pieces. When you put them together at these seams, it creates a new shape. And honestly, Kamui's done an amazing job. It's almost foolproof so long as you cut them out correctly. That's what I'm doing here. In the end, as you can see right now, I am planning for a back closure. So typically I'd probably use a zipper in the end, but you could use buckles, snaps, whatever. I really love zippers. They seem to be the best. But the way that I've set this up and the way that I've glued my pieces together, it will connect at the very back. If you're planning on doing your own dressing up, do it at the sides. So now I'm heating up the breast cups because I want them to be a little rounder, even with the nice seams and everything. Once you put them all together, it's still kind of boxy and weirdly shaped. So heat them with a heat gun to soften the foam, and then I have a metal globe that I bought online, and I shove it on the inside to help shape that. As the heated foam cools, it cools to that new rounder, smoother shape, and it makes for really nice cup shapes. Okay, so after a short coffee break, I came back and it's time to put my corset on a mannequin. This helps whenever I'm doing my detail pieces to make sure they're really looking right whenever the corset is on a body of some sort. So I usually like to stick that on a dress form. You can get Singer sewing dress forms or really any mannequin base. Put it on there, and then this is where we're gonna wing it. With a speed build, I don't have time to pattern more pieces or anything, so I take a look at what's underneath, put the foam on top, kind of trace what design I want, and then I'm going to cut it out straight from there. A trick that I use here for this speed build is instead of buying a 2mm roll of foam, I instead went ahead and bought the adhesive-backed foam sheets from Michael's Craft Stores. These are kind of like it's a foam sheet, but on the back is a sticker backing. So I won't have to mess with contact cement or other adhesives. I simply peel and stick. Makes it a lot nicer, especially for these detail over pieces. No more waiting, no more anything. It's about the best hack that I could tell you for details if you're trying to do something in a short period of time. You may have to go back afterwards and use a little bit of super glue once you put on a Plastidip primer because it will kind of peel them off from the base. But that's really easy to do, takes just a few seconds. This is totally a worthwhile hack for a speed build. So how exactly am I getting these detail pieces? It might look like I'm winging it, and that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm just looking at a picture of the corset that I have up at my top left here, and tracing out what I think looks about right and cutting it. Every speed build I've done usually ends up with a frantic cutting, tracing, eyeballing moment like this, and it's always paid off for me so far. But yes, no patterning here. You're just going for it.
Hello. Lexi Cosplay again to take a break from whatever video is going on below you, probably of me painting at this point. Who knows? Frantic, whatever it is at this point, since we are on interview number 3 with Geeky Gamer Girl Cosplay. Hello.
Hey. What's up?
So I met her the first time at KatsuCon, I believe, but I've known you from before then when you did some sort of a giveaway, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first time, and I got a bunch of cool stuff. My, of course, box of silver Sharpie markers lasted me forever. That was my favorite part of it.
Yes.
But, all sorts of things. So, and since then, I learned that her and Mothchild were friends, and then they're kind of like my group of people that if I needed to ever talk to somebody, I know they'd be there for me, and I would be there for them. So I like following her work. You're going to check it out. She's going to tell you our social links at the end. But before that, let's get down to it. I wanted to ask her some questions. She's done definitely far more in terms of sewing and doing those types of builds than I have. And they look fantastic.
Thank you.
Still, tailoring and sewing is still one of the harder things for me to do. But as a cosplayer, what kind of materials do you prefer to work with? Do you actually prefer to work with fabric, or do you like armor builds better?
It actually, I kind of flip-flop between them. I've been doing this I was thinking about it, actually, when you asked me to interview with me, I was like, oh man, I've been doing this a long time. So it really...
I don't even know.
So I count, it depends on how you want to count it. So, in 2009 was, when I made my first ever, really crappy college kid style cosplay of Sailor Moon. And then, after I graduated college in 2012, I just kind of, I was like, I'm going to keep making stuff, and it's going to be good. And so, it depends on if you count 2009 or if you count 2012 as the time, whatever, because, college, you do it really sporadically, whereas, when I graduated, then I was able to do it, more consistently, because then I didn't have to worry about schoolwork, just, actual work. But yeah, so I've been doing this a long time, and then I was thinking about, material-wise, it really is dependent on the project for me. Sometimes I'm just in a mood to do, a crazy good armor build, and then sometimes I'm in the mood to, try to learn weird sewing techniques.
Yeah.
So, I guess to answer your question, fabrics and foam,
Yeah. Hey, that's fair.
know.
Yeah, it's whatever works. I mean, if you've got something, I don't know, that you feel that is a good design and you'd really like to make that, whether or not it's in the material that you prefer, sometimes matters less than just wanting to make that and sacrificing maybe a favorite for the design that you really want to achieve. So, I mean, I could see that. I've kind of come to that myself sometimes, where I'm looking at things and I see it's sewing heavy, and I think that's a beautiful design. I don't know. And so I'm trying to find the threshold for whether or not I want to do more sewing things versus I'm really my favorite's armor. I'm just better at it, I think. And so you get more comfortable, but you are very versatile in terms of what you can do. And I envy that for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So there are certain cosplayers, and everyone that I've interviewed falls in this category, that they're good for your cosplay soul. They're not only are they very skilled in actually making things, but you guys are just you don't tear other people down. You're just super supportive constantly of everybody, and that's what we need. And it's been really nice lately too to have that whenever you don't get to see people in person, to feel that, virtually. So
absolutely. I've always kind of told people when it comes to cosplay, you want to surround yourself with people who are going to make you develop your skills and be a better creator and a better person, just in general. And I don't know if that's just me being, older now, that I'm just you kind of figure out who the people are that are going to lift you up, and then the people who are just not going to do that for you. And you just kind of disassociate yourself from those kinds of people and kind of work with the people who are going to help you become better at what it is you want to do, and just inspire you to be a good, just a good human.
It's quality. And I feel like you have to kind of age a little to really embrace that. You can say that, but until you get older, you really don't embrace it. You're not willing to sacrifice some people for the betterment of yourself. And sometimes it might not even be something I feel like that they would directly do to you. It's just a feeling. If you just feel bad when you do their stuff or something, that's not good for your feed. It's not good for your own development. And so I'm proud to say, like, everyone that I follow are people that I consider better than me in some way. And I like surrounding myself with that kind of feeling.
And that good energy.
Yeah, it's a good energy. It's a good energy. So that's, there you go. Good tips for anybody. If you're new and you're not sure what your like niche is, make sure it's a niche that makes you feel better. It makes you feel good about cosplay. Because otherwise the crafting itself it's not going to fulfill, I feel like. So it has many facets. But so are you working on anything now?
So currently I'm kind of at like a weird standstill because I'm not sure what exactly is going on job-wise for me because I'm a teacher. So there's all that virtual learning and all that fun stuff going on. So I haven't wanted to like commit to building any like huge armor piece or anything right now, even though I've got like 3 that I've been burning to make. So I've just kind of been chipping away at. I designed like an original D&D Queen themed like dress and little prop pieces that go along with that. So I've been kind of working on just the sculpting of little dragons on my staff at this point. But that's, it's few and far between because right now I'm just, like I said, trying to get prepared for school related things. But
are really any of us prepared for it? It's
no.
going to be an experiment for us all.
So back to the build. At this point, I'm using a Dremel tool to kind of carve in a few details. A lot of times this can show up nicely whenever you lightly paint over top because it retains the base color that you have, like a black. Whenever I ended up painting, as you'll see in the future, the paint went into the Dremel divots just because of the speed. But it was nice to have these then later to use as a guide for some detail painting in the end. So it helps give it a little more depth, honestly. It's worth your time. Alright, this is one of those steps you don't want to forget. Heat gun everything on your piece to close the pores so that you have an even texture and you have less layers that you'll have to do for priming with the Plasta Dip. Same as any build, it's going to go for this as well. Plasta Dip time. For this, because it's a speed build, I don't have time for several layers of Plasta Dip. I only did about 1.5-ish layers. And Plasta Dip Craft can be found at Michael's stores, which is, again, super convenient. One stop and you can get it all. So that's what I'm using here. It's a rubberized coating and it makes the texture throughout your piece an even layer. And it makes your paintings look really nice on top of that as well. Did you see that? It was the hesitation of not having a guide underneath and just starting to paint right with nothing. It is a little mind-boggling, but that's exactly what you have to do in a speed build. There's no time to sit there and draw and guide. You just have to trust your instincts and go for it. It can be a really nice test of where you fall in your crafting abilities. See how comfortable you feel. I'm actually taking a break here from the painting because I realized that this paint was not going to be opaque enough for a single layer, so I mixed in some of the DecoArt Americana red paint line with their dazzling metallics, and that'll give it a nice sheen in the end as well. Something to note here is that I start with the red because what I'm doing is starting with the lowest level base. So you start with the lowest level, work your way up. The golds and the overlays are the highest layers. Start with the red, work to my golds, and that will help with the messiness. If you get messy on a base layer and get some on the top, then you're going to be covering it with your top layer in the end anyway. If you started with the top layers and worked your way down, it might not be so easy. So this has been the way that I've found that works best for me. Some people tape. You don't have time for taping with a speed build. And so best of luck. Choose what you think will work best for you.
I've also kind of experimented with resin painting lately.
Ooh.
Yeah, so trying to learn a little bit more, just from an art perspective, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, so
But
doing
you
all
do
kinds of.
D&D, right? That's what you were saying?
Yes, I do. I do D&D as well.
A lot of people can relate. I think I tried it once, and I'm terrible at getting into character, so it's not quite my niche, but I did do Warcraft for a very long time, which is
Yeah.
nerdy.
It's the same thing. It's still fantasy. You're good. You got your own character. I think with D&D, a lot of people are afraid to like do it wrong, but like you can't because it's your character and you've made it and they're however you want them to be, even in like, you know, that moment. Like there's like a thing called character bleed, we call it, where like you have part of yourself that kind of bleeds into your character and your character's like personality and whatnot, and like some people have a lot of character bleed and some people have a little bit, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's really like, you know, you can't do it wrong, I guess is my point.
I feel like it's the same with cosplay too. I mean, you kind of get into the character, you have a different feel when you're wearing a costume, and it could be a little or a lot, but there is no really wrong way to do it. So I guess your plans then are on hold for the future because of the teaching thing, to see where kind of things flesh out.
Mhm.
Do you plan to go to conventions when they open up next year? Or are you going to start getting back out again? Or are you going to kind of stick virtual, I guess, for a while too?
I think it depends on if we have a vaccine.
Yeah, that's
or
fair.
not.
Yeah.
Because I mean, ultimately, I would like to be able to go to cons again just to see my friends and hang out. And meet other creators, but at the same time, I'm also like, I have to be safe.
And an extra
Just because I am a person that gets sick really easily anyway. So there's that. But I mean,
Yeah.
it
It's
is
all
what
over
it
here
is.
for everybody. That's fair.
And that's the sad thing, you
Yeah.
know.
I like that we've been having a lot of opportunities for virtual things with cosplay, at least. I feel like it's being able to watch virtual competitions or get involved with them, or being able to talk to you guys. It like helps build the passion for it that maybe is hard to maintain whenever you're alone for so long.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm excited for it, but.
And it's cool to just kind of also be introduced to people like from like other communities that you wouldn't necessarily see in a convention because they are so packed.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if you're watching something online or you're, you know, interacting with people virtually in that kind of experience, then you get to see, you know, maybe aspects of a convention that you don't normally get to see if you're like actually there.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of nice and just a little bit refreshing, I feel like. So there's like pros and cons to having virtual, I guess. But,
yeah, there is. It's just what we have to live with and make the best of for now. But, well, I'll wrap it up. I want you to go ahead and let everyone know where they can find your work or find you if they ever wanted to contact you.
Okay, so I don't have my Facebook page anymore. Just because it was a lot of things to manage, but you can find me at Instagram. I'm just the Geeky Gamer Girl Cosplay, all lowercase, all together. And then on Twitter, I'm actually Kawaii Edgelord. Again, all lowercase together. And the reason for that is because I use Twitter primarily for D&D related stuff, and that's. I'm also on like a kind of D&D show thing that we run on Twitch, and so like they describe my character because she's a rogue as you know, the cute edgelord. So
yeah,
that's where my Twitter handle came from.
Well, if we have any D&D people that are watching here, there you go. Now you've got another avenue to go explore while you're
Absolutely.
all
Please talk to me about your D&D characters. I love them.
Love it. Well, thank you for talking with me, answering some questions, and I guess stay safe and best of luck with the school year.
Thank you. You as well.
Thanks.
Alright guys, so we are coming down to the wire here. It's getting a little stressful. We can see the seams because I had no time to Dremel or fill, but it'll kind of be covered optical illusion style in the end. At this point is when I decided we're not having a back to this. So my red painting details stop at the sides so that you could have a good view from the front. We're just going to cover it with a cape in the back if we were to take this out in public, which we're not. So I'm finishing up the striping here, and it's looking alright. Honestly, I am pleased, a little surprised because this is not the way that I planned for this to go, but I'm happy with the results so far. Typically, what I like to do is use a sponge and avoid the divots or any of the crevices that I have, and that gives more depth to the painting. This sponge painting was not going the way that I planned, so I quickly realized after taking a look at this that I was going to nix the sponge and go straight back to using a brush. After I was done all of my painting, I just took a few seconds with a little bit of black paint that I mostly offloaded from a brush and got into all the corners to give more depth, highlight those layers that we've spent the time putting on. But for now, just a single layer of gold paint all the way around the top details and near the belt area. Let's have another convo here since it's getting kind of boring watching me paint. A lot of people really like my metallics. Like I said, what I usually do is sponge to leave the divots black, but you can also go back afterwards and add some shadows. After I'm done this base layer of gold, we don't just want to leave it a single flat gold color. You're going to go in and put some highlights, and you can use a stippling brush for that, or you can use a sponge. You're going to offload most of your paint, and that means putting some paint on your brush and then wiping most of it off, and I'll use a little tray or a plastic piece for that. And so you barely have any paint left on your stippling brush or your sponge, and then you just lightly do a layer over top of everything that you've done. This helps avoid any divots and cracks and keeps it to where the highlights are being highlighted where it makes sense. My goodness, this gold painting took longer than I remember. So let me go ahead and fill in here with some more info about, I guess, painting. Some of my favorite brushes are the flat brushes. They're usually, I think this is a 1-inch flat brush. It has nice coverage. You can get large areas finished. And then from here, you kind of work your way down in sizes for brush. So you start with your 1-inch if you want to do the larger swaths of area. You do the large stippling brushes if you want to do maybe a brushed metallic color, or like I said, the highlights later. And then you work your way down. You can do more of your detail brushes, and then all the way down to the skinniest detail brushes for the highlight lines if you choose to. We are not going to have time for highlight lines in this build because of time, so I didn't end up with a very small brush at the end, but this 1-inch flat brush really did the trick for most of what I needed. What I'm mixing in here is the gold color that I had, and also DecoArt has an extreme sheen line that you can find at Michael's. That is something that has a lot more shininess to it, and it would be perfect for highlights. So I picked a gold color that was slightly lighter than the gold base I was using, and I mixed it in a bit with the gold base so that it matched a little better. And I'm using a stippling brush here just to go over where there would be natural highlights. So any of the spots that are above divots, basically. So right above the breast cup is perfect. And it also helps cover a little bit more since I only got to do one layer of my base paint. But yeah, this is a light-handed texture technique because you don't want to smash a highlight into where a low light naturally would be. So just lightly go over all of the areas that would naturally be highlighted on an armor piece to help emphasize that highlight a little more. I ended up doing this highlight technique for quite some time because I found that it was giving me a nice coverage. It was making the metal look a lot better just with this one technique. So as you can see, I'm spending quite a bit of time doing it. I think it does pay off in the end though, as you'll see when everything's finished. So now we're going to do the same thing with the reds. I'm mixing up what I think would be a lighter red color. I actually mixed in that Extreme Sheen goldish color with the red because her entire corset armor kind of has like a gold feel to it anyway. And I'm going to again go in where there's a natural highlight, so right above the breast cups. Honestly, if you look at a corset and you draw a heart shape from the sternum around the top of the breast cups, around the edges, and then down to the middle of the belt line, that's where I keep most of my highlights. That's where the light naturally hits, and it looks nice in the end. Not only did I do the heart shape, but I also came up from the middle, center, and then up towards the top middle portion of the breast cups as well. It's, again, where the highlights naturally fall. And I really like how this technique ends up giving it more of a, I wouldn't say weathered look, but it just gives a lot of dimension. It makes it look like a real piece. It makes it look less flat, and that's what you need in your cosplay armor. So as you can see me frantically in the background, now I'm mixing more of a low light, and we're going to do the same stippling technique, and I'm going underneath of the breast cups and where the low lights would naturally fall. If you're not really sure where highlights and lowlights fall, pick up your armor piece and put it in the light, and you'll be able to see exactly where highlights and lowlights would be. Follow that. You're just following the natural lighting and emphasizing it with more dimension with different colors of paint. Alright guys, we are coming up to the end. I am pretty much done here. The bottom left of the next slide is going to be the final product before I did a little extra detailing, and then I took about 5 minutes with a flat brush with a little bit of black paint And as you can see in the belt lines and some of the battle damaged areas, I just added some black to emphasize that depth. But that is it. Speed build, 1 hour, finished product. I hope you guys are proud of it. Thanks for watching.